Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us here for our regular council meeting for Monday, October 7th. We have all council members in attendance this evening, and we have a full complement of youth council members here too. We have our new youth member, Cole Foster. Welcome. You're in for a good one. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please stand for our national anthem if you are able.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Director Malandrucolo for a closed meeting report.
Andy, through you, I can report that council met on Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. and moved into closed section as permitted to do so under the Municipal Act 2001, as amended by way of section 239(2)I to discuss a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. And that is the extent of my report.
Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council here this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder for adopting of the regular council meeting agenda as amended. We do have two delegates here. We have Don Bazaire and Dana and Nigel Williams who wish to speak to our banner report. So I'm looking to amend the agenda to add them and also to move up our report 10.7 to 10.1, the corresponding banner report. Moved by Deputy Mayor, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Come on in. All in favor? And that is carried. We will go to public presentations. So we have, I'm sorry, I will probably pronounce your name wrong. So I'm just going to say we have the Director of Windsor Region GIP Paving. Welcome. Just go on back to the podium. Just say your name for us. And sir, when you get back there, you have 5 minutes to address council.
Good afternoon, council. Thanks for your time. My name is John Marco Giglio, most often mispronounced, but I'm the director for GIP in Windsor, Essex. I'm just waiting. Where does the presentation go up? So again, thanks for your time. I'm here to request an extension for the permit to supply fill to the site at 5080 Walker Road. I work for GIP Paving. We were previously Coco Paving. Coco Paving was purchased in 2022. And I personally have worked for Coco Paving and now GIP Paving since 2014. In the fall of 2022, we were approached by the landowner to provide excess soil to that property to bring the grade up, as there was drainage issues on that property. I know that there was a previous contractor there, but since the fall of 2022, we took over that site and have been managing it since then. And we're supplying clean excess soil to raise the grade on that site. And the way that's referred to as it's excess soil for beneficial reuse. We can flip the slide. So our goals here are to, create the most arable productive farmland possible. We're looking to responsibly manage excess soil for productive construction activities. We want to maintain clean roads and keep our truck drivers accountable and, create happy neighbors and a happy township. I know that this has probably been a long time coming and should have been kind of approached maybe a few years back, but we're looking to, complete the fill work on that site. We can flip the slide. So the benefits there are, positive drainage and, to encourage a productive crop on that site. That site is approximately 80 acres. And what we're looking to do is work together with council, the municipal officials, the owner, and the neighbors to ensure that, we're keeping everybody satisfied there who is, call it a stakeholder in what we're trying to do. Some of the other kind of points I wanted to touch on were that, excess soil in the last few years has really become a challenge in the construction industry. You can talk to the contractor who did the road just out here on Irwin, who did a beautiful job. Excess soil has become very, very difficult to manage because of the new Ontario regulation that came into effect April 1st, 2023. And, sites like these, especially in Essex County, are not come by very often. And really the other options in Essex County are the landfill, which the landfill in reality doesn't want the earth, because the landfill is intended to collect garbage. And the earth fill is not garbage. There's lots of good places to use it. And, all of the earth fill that we're bringing to this site has been tested. There's soil reports that go along with everything, because all of the work that we do is for other municipalities, be it the County of Essex, LaSalle, Lakeshore, Leamington, Amherstburg, etc. We can flip the slide, please. So, we're looking to work together to manage that site as best as possible. And, obviously we're not perfect in any way. And on occasion when, it rains and there's still trucks in there and, the road gets a little dirty on occasion, we do our best to go in and clean it. We apply calcium chloride to the driveway going into the site to reduce dust as much as possible. And, we're looking to complete this for the owner there so that he's able to farm that land and get, the most productive crop off of it. Right. So, really like I said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to work together with, municipal officials, with the owner, and with the neighbors to ensure that we can continue to use that site. And it's not as if though we're going to be there for the next 10 or 20 years. We're seeking a 2-year extension here. And I see my time is coming to an end, but thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm available.
Thank you. At this point, I'm seeking council's approval to go to both delegations, and then we can ask questions if that's okay. Okay, so I just want to move that we receive the delegation at this point. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, we have other delegates here. We have David Keller and Kevin Keller. Okay, go back to the mic. Each of you get 5 minutes. If you both wish to speak, you get 5 minutes each.
The pictures are pictures I sent in. I seen them up there. Oh, Sandra, get that? Okay. Basically, me and my brother are opposing, and all of our neighbors, the noise of the trucks, the dirty road constantly, then they wash it, and then it's a mud road. It's a main road from Harrow. We've had so many detours, and everyone's traveling that road at this point. I work from home constantly. I hear the bulldozer going tick, 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 beep, beep, and it kind of drives me nuts all day long. When the dump trucks come in, you hear their tailgate slam, the extra traffic. The last 4 weeks have been heaven. None of that noise. It's been beautiful, quiet. I can hear the birds now. I'm quite satisfied. And the farm, it's or Phil's site or farm, it's supposed to be. The weeds, my brother lost his view east. He just sees those invasive weeds all over. They don't cut the weeds, they don't trim. Gorski's across the road, they do all their maintaining their lawns and they cut the roadways. I walked through, there's a view from my brother's house there. And that's what you see. And maybe these guys didn't do it, but there's a lot of gravel and unlevel grade in there. There's a lot of piece of aggregate and asphalt, plastic, wood. I just did a quick walk around yesterday. And yeah, and the weeds are horrible. Yeah. And it has been very nice, as I've said. And it would be nice to keep this site closed. John Bazala across the road, has it the worst with the trucks in and out right at his driveway constantly. And the noise of the trucks accelerating and decelerating. I don't know what to say. I'm very pleased that the site's closed, and I would like to see it stay that way. Anything you have to say, brother?
Yeah, the site's probably half full. This has been going on for 4 years. He says 2, whatever. But for 4 years now, the site's been going on. Half of it's already filled. Why are the weeds there? They're not maintaining that. They're not even farming what is already supposedly finished. If half of it is done, why is it not being farmed? Like I said, the weeds have got to be at least 3 feet high. And there's no, it's just disgusting. It's terrible. Any way you look at it. And then along with like I say, Dave says the dirt and whatnot, but apparently there's been 8,500 loads brought in. That's the word I got. And with 8,500 loads, you should be able to manage the water. If you can't manage the water with 8,500 loads already, you're doing something wrong. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to receive the delegation from David Keller and Kevin Keller. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Mady. All in favor. Okay, questions or comments from council to either the delegates or to our administration? Councillor Verbeek, then Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess first, just a comment, and then I have a couple of questions for Mr. Carter, because he's in the room. I've been forced because of the last speaker mentioned the detours. Because of the detours, all of August and September, I was forced to take that route, and I don't typically take it. At least twice, I called our mayor and I said, there's going to be an accident here. Like every time I went, there were trucks in queue lined up as you come out of the bend to turn in. There were trucks inside lined up to turn out. And it was just a muddy mess. And I hadn't I didn't know that before because I didn't have to travel that route until I was forced to by detours. And so I'm glad to hear it's over. I wondered if maybe because it was going to end, there was an increase in the trucks. I wanted to ask Mr. Carter if there's been extensions. Hasn't there been extensions granted on this parcel? If so, how many? And if the extension is granted, would that be enough to finish the proposed project?
Madam Mayor, they're not extensions, they're renewals of the fill permit. And that, it started back in August 20th, 2019, and every year they have renewed. So it's been a total of 5.5 years. And it expired on September 17th of this year.
Counselor Meady.
Madam Mayor, I had a question for the gentleman from GIP. If I could ask him a question, probably have to go to the podium there. We can get there. And then maybe somebody, I don't know, somebody from the administration would want to comment as well. So when I visited the site prior to this meeting, when I got back, now this was a while back, you guys probably have done a lot of work since, but when I was there, it was like a person, it was above my head from one side of the field to the other. What effect is it going to have if it's left the way it is with the drainage on that side of the field? Like, is this going to affect, we do have one of our drain runs around there. Like, my concern for either with going ahead, not going ahead is what happens to that drain and what happens with all that flooding that's going to come through that field at this point in time, if it's just left the way it is. Like, if you have any comments on that.
The way the property is right now, we would have to go in, obviously, if the permit is not extended, we would have to go in to at least, let's call it feather out the grade from where we filled to where the existing farm field was, right? In terms of the management of water and the drain that runs adjacent to that property, there is no effect to that drain with us filling that property. We've met with the drainage and superintendent for the town, and he doesn't have concerns because that property is not part of the floodplain in that area. So.
Question is, so as it stands right now, if you guys weren't to complete, you guys have to haul any topsoil in order to make what's there farmable? Or is it ready to be farmable now?
We would have to bring in a small amount of topsoil for kind of where we didn't complete, right? As of whenever that permit had expired this year, we knew we had to come to council. We stopped then in anticipation of, being able to restart there so that we can complete that project. Further to Councillor Verbeek's comments about, if granted the extension, would we complete that site? Yes, we would. We would. So.
For Mr. Carter, would they'd be allowed to bring in the topsoil at this point, or is that prohibited unless we allow some sort of an extension?
I believe there's topsoil on the project now to be top coated. If they're wishing to bring in topsoil, we could allow up to 1,200 cubic meters.
Your worship, my questions exactly. Just the last one about the farming already. Is it a normal process when you're conducting these fill sites that the farming would continue as you continue filling it, or is it normally wait until you're all finished before that takes?
Normally, when we've conducted other sites like this, it really depends on the size and it depends on kind of the point that it's at. You know what I mean? Like, I think at this point, our plan was that this year, call it approximately half that is complete. We would have done kind of a final pass with the dozer. We also probably would have gone through and done a sweep for anything that wasn't supposed to be there or was dumped there previously that we would have cleaned up. Because, you know, we sort of, we took this site over. We did not start here, right? So the permit was pulled in 2019. We started in the fall of 2022. So essentially we've almost been there, call it 2 construction seasons, right? So it depends on the size of the site. With a site like this, you know, at this point in time, we would complete half of it, smooth it over so that the farmer can start to do his thing on that half of the site. Yeah, definitely.
And Counselor Hammond.
Thank you through the chair. I said before, when we passed the bylaw to stop dumping, that we were going to have an issue with dumping. And just ending dumping does not fix the problem. Construction still happens, dumping still needs to happen. I talked with IRCA about this property and they have no issue with what's going on with the dumping issues there and the drain that's in behind. I talked with our current dump about dumping. They understand that it's an issue. They were reached out to by Windsor Construction Association to see if they could make a deal and have dirt soil dumped in the landfill. That's not something the landfill is wanting to do. So it's not just an Essex problem. It's an Ontario province problem. Saying no dumping in our town is not the solution. We need to come up with a better solution. It is probably a county issue at this point. But just saying no really puts a halt to all construction. We're looking at doing something here in town, and where are we going to put our soil? I would like to extend the two years for them. I would like to put some provisions, just so council is aware, when a company is going in and they're extracting soil, and I didn't just learn this, like I researched this. I talked with the landfill about how it works. They get soil reports done many years in advance before they start dumping. So it's not just like they're going to go and they're going to start dumping unknown in the area. Soil reports are done, and we know what's going in there before the trucks are even brought. So I think that we should let them to go 2 years. The weeds need to be taken care of, and I don't know why our bylaw isn't insisting that the weeds are taken care of in the first place. The site should be maintained. There shouldn't be weeds, and it shouldn't be an eyesore to the community around it. I haven't driven down the road. I don't know what it looks like in when it's wet, but the road should be taken care of, and to me, that's a bylaw issue. And to me, that says our bylaws not following up as often as they should. Maybe fines need to be put in place for properties that, and Kevin's smiling, I'm sure there already is. But maybe we need to do something. Maybe bylaw needs another tool from council to do the job. Maybe there's something lacking that we need to provide them. I don't think this council should say hard no to everything. I think we should have a serious conversation about it. I think that we should give our bylaw the tools that they might need, and we need to put regulations in place if they're not already there. So I would say yes. I would be in agreement to letting it go another 2-year extension, let them finish the project. That would give GIP they've been there 2 years. That would be 4 years total that GIP is working on the project. Give them the 2-year extension, and let's clean up the property and make it look appeasing from the road and for the neighbors. Also making sure that those trucks are only there when they're allowed to be there and not before or after our noise bylaw. Things like that I think need to be put in place. So I'm in favor of granting the extension as long as the site is cleaned up to our standards.
Your worship, I'd like to ask GIL a couple questions, and as well, I'd like to make a comment regarding something, Katie McGuire Blaze says. Through the mayor, you said that the property originally wasn't farmable. Is that correct? You did not say that.
No.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that the farmer wasn't able to farm the land before, and that's why you were in there to repurpose it. Okay.
No.
You said it's not a floodplain though, but every time there's a significant amount of rain, it floods, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this filling is supposed to stop that from flooding, correct?
Correct.
But it's not a floodplain
That's correct, based on IRCA's.
based on IRCA. Okay. Yeah, well, so what is there's a grade that comes down from the fourth concession. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it continues well past your entry road down to the creek that services all the water coming down from the fourth concession. And that's where it turns to eventually make its way back south to the lake. Now, what to me, that looks like there's at least a 20-foot drop from the road down to that creek. Would you concur that for me?
It myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Okay,
just
well,
going
it's
by-
significant. So now there seems to be like a 20-foot berm at the edge of that creek at the end of your property.
Was existing.
Pardon me?
If I'm not mistaken, the berm was existing.
Oh, so you guys haven't filled it into 20 feet above the original thing that was done there by the previous.
Just, please ask your questions through the chair and, just directed questions, please.
I'm trying to get the extent of this fill because according to our bylaws, he's only allowed to go a certain amount over the road. Because there's a significant drop in that property, it does continue level across that, but it's considerably higher than the course of the land that up against that creek. Yes, Katie, we do have to have places for our construction. Unfortunately, I don't think Essex should be the dumping ground for the entire county. We don't have enough construction going on in our neighborhood to warrant this type of dumping. It's, he's not benefiting the neighbors around him. It's not benefiting anybody going to or from Harrow with the number of pickup trucks they have to drive behind. I'm not in favor at all of renewing this ever again.
Just, if we could just address council members as Counselor McGuire Blaze or Counselor Hammond, I would try to appreciate that. I have some strong opinions on this as well. This property has been an eyesore since I can remember. Only recently did it start to get cleaned up until when we started putting some heat on it. It's, the property owners have had enough here. You know, it's been going on since 2019. It doesn't matter to me that it was wasn't GIP before. It's been going on since 2019. I've noticed it for years. Residents have come to council, complained the amount of traffic on the road, the amount of dirt on the road. This area is just had enough. Potentially, I could be open-minded to looking at a county solution, a joint county area that is not as potentially contentious as this. I don't want clean fill in the landfill as well. We're not talking to the property owner here, who I've talked to the property owner before and asked him to bring reports showing the nature of the dirt that's in there. So I haven't not been proved that the dirt that's going in there is clean fill. So I have a lot of concerns there. I just feel that council has discussed this. We actually unanimously supported removing the dumping sites. And if we open this one up, we're going to be opening up all of the other ones that we worked so hard to close. In the last term of council, we were asked by residents to stop this, and this council did. So I feel like no means no. And I'm just looking for direction from council. I know Councilor Verbeek, you had your hands up.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, just following up on some comments that were made. Again, like previous council and administrations worked really hard on this. This took years to come to pass, and we finally put an end to the dumping on behalf of our residents. This was driven by our residents, and we did the work for the past 2 terms, and we're able to put a stop to it, to protect the quality of life for our residents, to protect our roads. I don't know why we're even looking at going backwards when we did all the work to put an end to it. Also, like, from my understanding from farmers that do have to build up their properties, if it's truly just about improving the farming capacity, you're not going to lose 5.5 growing seasons. They're going to do it quickly, not over the period of time. Again, this is about managing the dirt, and that our business is to manage a quality of life for our residents. So I think, as the mayor just stated, no is no. We put an end to this for a reason.
Speak at this time, looking for direction from council. If anybody wants to make a motion that we approve or not approve the extension to permit excess soil at 5080 Walker Road. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
I'll put the motion forward that we allow the extension for 1 year with that they have to clean up the property. Sorry, I'm missing a word there. They have to clean up the property, get rid of the garbage, the weeds, and make it look presentable from the street.
Okay, so put forward by Councillor McGuire Blaze that you extend for 1 year. Was that? Okay, needing a seconder for that. I saw Councillor Mady's hand first, so it's seconded by Councillor Mady. I would like to ask for a recorded vote. Director Malandrucolo. Any comments on the motion? It is to extend for 1 year. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
From somebody from administration, what type of restrictions are you wanting to put on? It's pretty open, but to say restrictions, what? Just clean up the dirt and the weeds, that's it? Okay, thank you. Yeah, is there any limit to the amount of trucks, or? I'm just curious what if anybody from administration has anything to say in regards to your motion.
Anybody from administration? I don't know how we would count the amount of trucks, though. We'd have to have staff members all the time to count the amount of trucks. Sorry, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Guerin.
Yeah, through the mayor, just trying to help Deputy Mayor Shepley. Is there provisions already in place by bylaw enforcement is what you're kind of getting at? That we can add as provisions to Councilman McGuire Blaze's motion. So is there anything already that we can control? I think that, yeah, I don't think that that Councilman McGuire is asking for anything that we didn't already ask for in the past. In terms of provisions, clean up your site, weeds, dirt on the roads. I'm sure those were all things that were taken into consideration when fill permit applications were applied for.
Madam Mayor, this regulation just came into effect. Prior to that, we didn't quite have that regulation. So the ministry is moving forward with contaminated soil, which is a good thing. That I wanted to address. In terms of the weeds, agricultural land, they're allowed to have their property, agricultural land, go back to nature. As long as there's not noxious weeds adversely affecting abutting farms. We have not received any complaints. So it's permitted to have those weeds. In terms of the garbage, I believe the councilor is referring to the concrete or the asphalt on the surface. That could be addressed through the property owner. In terms of the number of loads, the way the Second Amendment to the existing bylaw would allow approximately 100 loads maximum. Unless council sets, if they wish to set a limit, we can certainly abide by that. But for now, it's 1,200 cubic meters, is basically 60 to 100 loads, depending on the size of the dump truck.
Carter, in your opinion, if we open this dump site again, is it of your opinion that others that have been closed could come back? Do you feel that that is a possibility at all?
through Madam Mayor, absolutely, for sure.
Okay. Counselor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. I was under the understanding when we put the bylaw in place that we were going to close it. It was so that way they had to come to us and ask for the permission. That's why we did it. So they came to us, they asked us that there was a plan in place, there was an end in sight. And it wasn't that we were no to everybody. It was that we were going to be able to control it. They had to come to us to ask. And so they're doing what they stopped when they had to. They're coming to us to ask. So I just want to put, yes, they should come to us. This should open it up for people to come to us because again, we need a proper solution. And so this is starting the conversation of, and it needs to be a county issue and it's a provincial issue. We need to come to a solution. This is starting the conversation. We should have these people come to us. That's what we want. We don't want them illegally dumping. We don't want to have to find out and then have to go back and undo what we're doing. We want them to come to us. We want to give them the permission. That's why we did this.
Your worship. The reason why I seconded the motion was exactly for that. I do believe that Councillor McGuire Blaze makes some really good points in the fact that we're going to need to solve this problem. We have a problem to solve this problem. We're going to need to start having some real conversations about which fill we want to have and where we want to have it. So is this the project? I don't know. I don't think so. But we do need to start those conversations and we do need to have those conversations. So I think it was very important for us to continue this conversation.
The motion through you, Madam Mayor. So I did just hear Mr. Carter say exactly what my fear was, that extending in this case after 5.5 years would open the floodgates that we did a lot of work to close on behalf of the quality of life for our residents. Yes, the dirt needs to be managed, possibly, as the mayor suggested, at the county level. If we want to, at some point as a council, relook at this, but at this point, we've closed that floodgate. And we just heard Mr. Carter, who is clearly in the know better than any of us on this, that it would open the floodgates. We'd probably have people coming before us for every meeting asking to reopen this. So I won't be supporting any extension.
Last comment on this one, Counselor Hammond.
Thank you, through you. I agree, and I've said it all along. We do have to manage our construction waste and dirt problems, and that's just it, manage it. Not indiscriminately get rid of it. I think there should be a plan in place for all the soils that we're gonna be extracting for construction. And I think that they should be graded and positioned appropriately so that anything that can be reused can be reused. Here we just got waste and then topsoil dumped on top of it to make it look pretty for this presentation. This is not the space for this type of management.
I just believe that this site has had enough and it only looks good because we're discussing it. It's been poorly managed for years. So Director Malandrucolo, can you please?
The motion on the floor is that council approve an extension to permit excess soil at 5080 Walker Road for 1 year, contingent on GIP Paving Inc. cleaning up the property, weeds, and garbage. The mayor has asked for a recorded vote. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi opposes. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley opposes. Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Verbeek opposes. Councillor Allard, how do you vote? Councillor Allard opposes. Councillor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councillor McGuire Blaze votes in favor. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Guerin opposes. Councillor Hammond, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Hammond opposes. Councillor Mady, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Counselor Meady opposes. The motion is defeated.
Delegates for coming out tonight. Moving on to 8.2. Oh. We have to do it? Okay, sorry, the clerk has clarified with me that we need to have a motion to not extend. Seeking somebody to make a motion. Counselor Hammond, that we do not approve an extension to permit excess soil at 5080.
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Counselor Meady. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I did miss the minutes. Sorry, everybody. 7.1, regular council meeting minutes on the other page for September 16th. Needing a mover and a seconder that we adopt the regular council meeting minutes. Sorry, my fault. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councilor Verbeek, all in favor, and that is carried. Okay, moving on, 8.2, Town of Essex, Colchester Beach Certificate of Accessibility. I will bring this over to Jake, our Director of Community Services, Mr. Morissette.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. A few weeks ago, the Town of Essex was presented an award, a certificate of accessibility in connection with our accessible initiatives that we've had at the Colchester Beach and Harbor over the past few years. So the group also, which is Assisted Living Southwestern Ontario, presented this, and their acknowledgement program is called ALGO, which stands for Assisted Living Goes Out. So their mission is to make change for equality, diversity, and accessibility. So over the past couple of years, the Town of Essex has had a lot of initiatives for accessibility at that location, and this was recognized. So the County of Essex had an accessibility event where they had invited municipalities and different organizations throughout the county in mid-September. So it was a very successful event. It was the first, hopefully, annual event that they put on. And as part of this event, this group wanted to present us with this award, which as we were the hosts. So not just because we were the host, but just because of all the initiatives that we've had lately. So with that said, they did give us a certificate that I'll present to council. And this is what we received.
Okay, thank you. Maybe after we'll snap a group picture. Okay, 10.3, verbal report by Mayor Bondi regarding the Detroit, motion to receive. I'm having an off night. Deputy Mayor, Councilor Allard, all in favor? That is carried. Verbal report by myself on the Detroit River Canadian Cleanup Freshwater Initiative. I just wanted to let council colleagues know that on September 20th, all the mayors in the area were invited to LaSalle to talk about monies given to our Great Lakes. The federal government gave $76 million to 50 partner agencies, and IRCA was one of them, and they're doing some work on phosphorus in our lake. And I thought it was really exciting because Essex Region Conservation Authority is proposing a large-scale targeted nutrient reduction program to meet the objectives of the Great Lake Water Quality Agreement. So I'll send you all the media release, and I just wanted to raise it because I think it's exciting living on Lake Erie that some local partner agencies got money, some for the Detroit River, some for St. Clair River, and some good news. Looking for a motion that the verbal report be received. Councilor Meady, Councilor Hammond, hopefully no questions, all in favor, and that is carried. Moving on to, we have 10.4. We have our delegates here. I don't know who wants to go first. Dawn? Miss Dawn is there. Just go back to the mic and turn it on and you get 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. I am the elected Executive Board Secretary for the Harrow Legion Branch 338. At our last general membership meeting held on Monday, September 16th, our members overwhelmingly approved pursuing a streetlight banner process to honor our local veterans, similar to what the town of Kingsville has. I have since been in contact with Wendy Pullyblank Cunningham and Rich Malash from Essex Salute Our Vets Banner Project Committee because we all agree that a collaborated effort would be beneficial. Wendy advised that the Essex project was originally on hold by the town of Essex pending completion of streetscaping, and that there is a pending streetlight banner policy on the agenda tonight we'll be discussing that could result in a $40 charge per banner each time they're installed. The Grassroots Salute Our Vets Committee, as well as the Royal Canadian Legion, are nonprofit entities, and in no way could we ever afford this yearly cost. This banner project would honor past and present local veterans in a colorful, vibrant way by showing their faces and service stories. We are hoping to get funding from residents, local businesses, as well as potential corporate sponsors to help pay for the banners. However, a $40 charge per banner per year is absolutely not feasible to us. Per Wendy's email to council that hopefully you would have received, we humbly request that all of these memorial veteran banners be displayed from Legion Week, mid-September, to the week after Remembrance Day, and that any fees for installation, removal, and maintenance of the banners by the town of Essex be waived. We must all remember that if it wasn't for our local veterans, our municipality would never have existed, nor would we have the freedom of democracy offered to us today. We believe this is a small gesture to honor the huge sacrifice that veterans have made for us.
Motion to receive the delegation. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? That is carried, and we will go to our second delegation. Dana Wilson, Nigel Williams, sorry. Welcome. I am on a roll, I know. I had a very challenging weekend with my daughter. She pushed my limits. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nigel Williams. I am a veteran. It's kind of weird to say that because I feel like I'm still in. I spent 14 years in the military, 2 tours in Afghanistan. I'm not one to say it's because of us you have freedoms, but I am one to say that we did it and you didn't. Okay? The fact, and I apologize, I'm not too caught up on all of it, but when I heard the town has a possibility of charging veterans for a banner display, it really, really bothered me to my core. I don't usually speak up in things like this. My wife does. And it really bothered me, so I felt it was important for us to be here tonight to express that. We have one day. I hate to say this, but this would never happen in the United States, ever. We can learn a lot from what they do. There's a lot of things that we don't want to learn from, but when it comes to patriotism, we can. And the fact that this is even up for discussion is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I literally left and skinned somewhere else so that for me, it wasn't because I didn't want any of us here to do it, because I didn't want my children to have to do it. So when you're asking a veteran organization, whether it be it us as veterans or the Legion, they struggle enough as it is without any of this. To ask them to pay to display a banner is ridiculous. And when I think, you know, we stood at the beginning to honor our flag. I listened to the mayor acknowledge the land that we're on. Well, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do not think that if it was something to do with reconciliation or the indigenous groups, we would be talking about this. There was no way anybody would say, hey, let's charge them to display it. And to ask us to do that can't happen. Just can't happen. So I understand that the economic challenges that everybody's going through. I get it. I'm no different. But there has to be some sort of common sense has to kick in here at some point. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Through Madam Mayor,
Thank you for bringing it to our attention, because otherwise I just wouldn't. And I don't have the time in my repertoire of things to do to read everything that's going on in the town. Myself and my husband are retired Reg Force military. We both served in the Army. We both were injured in our service, and that is why we are retired. When we retired from the military gives you your choice of where to move anywhere in Canada, and we chose Essex. We don't have family here. We chose Essex. And I love Essex. Albeit this is not a military town, and I can respect that. I don't expect to go out and be thanked for my service. I didn't join the military to be thanked for my service. I did it because that's what I wanted to do. I come from a long line of military. My grandmother and my grandfather served. My mother served. Both my brothers served. I served, and then I met my husband, obviously, in the military. So I certainly didn't come here expecting somebody to bow down to me or think I'm better than them, because I definitely am not. However, we did make a lot of sacrifices. Veterans continue to make sacrifices. People look at veterans and they think of the older generation. That's not true. There's tons of veterans still around. And to ask an organization, I mean, if we need to get something for ourselves, it's like pulling teeth. They're not going to give it to us. And we're injured and can't do a lot of things because of them. And yet we still have to pull teeth to get stuff from, whether it be the Legion, because you still have to jump through hoops. So that one day that my husband was talking about, to ask those members to pay for that one day that's theirs, it's hurtful. I'm not asking for us to be given a parade or anything like that, but to ask us to pay for a banner to recognize our service, I think that it shouldn't be a question. Now, I can't attest to any other organizations and what that's. I think that when it comes to veterans, though, that should just be an automatic. Absolutely not. When it's Remembrance Day, we are putting up that banner. That's the least that we can do for them. Even if you don't know any veterans, which I suspect some of you do, some of you have veterans in your family, we should be able to do that. Like Dawn was saying, I didn't know anything about what Dawn was talking about as far as these other banners. I'm interested to learn more about that. But for sure, a Remembrance Day banner. I'm hoping that council can see through the red tape, per se, and honor the veterans and not make them pay for something. They're not receiving anything in return. So you're taking money from them at this point. That's it.
A motion to receive our second delegation, Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Verbeek, all in favor. And that is carried. And before we go to council, we will go to the report just so our staff can walk us through it, and then we can ask questions of all three. Thank you. Mr. McBeth.
Madam Mayor, through the chair. So for this streetlight banner policy, it follows a similar structure to the recently passed decorative crosswalk policy. And a few key points that I do want to point out about this policy is that the proposed banners are supposed to celebrate the town's culture, history, promote local tourism, promote business improvement areas, special events, activities that are consistent with the purposes and values of the town of Essex. The town council must approve the final banner designs prior to the production and installation. Banners can only be installed and maintained or removed by Town of Essex Public Works personnel. Banners, per the policy, are to be hung for a maximum of 30 days, but extensions can be granted. And I know it was noted as a question, so theoretically there could be up to 12 banner changes in a calendar year. Could be more often if people do not want them up for more than, say, a 1-week event, then they could come down. But 30 days unless council extends it. There is a fee that is proposed for the banners, right? These are for all banners, I'm going to reiterate, right? Not just the ones for veterans. But we have it written in the bylaw that council can waive fees per their discretion if the policy is, or the initiative is deemed to have significant municipal interest. And like I said, the fees can be waived by council. The $40 fee, though, that we are proposing for the banners does not cover the actual manpower or equipment costs required to do this. And it's only there to help offset a small portion of the rental for the equipment that we have to install the banners because they're at different elevations depending on the town center. The policy provides the applicants with design guidelines, banner dimensions for both Harrow and Essex centers. And we also included in the policy map. So if applicants only want to apply for a specific pole or area, they can have that information to put into their applications. Thank you.
Gail Sweet.
Bondi, just want to add to Manager Macbeth's comments. And first of all, thank you for your service. Really appreciate it. I think tonight, two things are brought forward just so council discussed. Is one is the banner policy is just a general policy, right? Not just specific to Legions, but it could be any organization. So I think that's one thing that Mr. Macbeth presented. The second thing is there an exemption you're looking for with the Legions? So it looks like they would be both Essex and Harrow, two groups that would annually look at putting up banners. We did talk internally, so there may be some solutions, but we'll kind of see what further conversation with council. But I just wanted to ensure that there is a banner policy because there could be other organizations that mentioned by all the delegates that could come forward, right? So to address the policy, but also if you're looking at exemptions, how that would be.
Then Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your service. And thanks for coming before us. And thank you to the Salute Our Vets Banner Project team. This small committee that's driving this, I really appreciate them coming forward with this. My question, I guess right now is to Director Jarusevich. Is there money in our council contingency funds to cover this, these costs?
Through the chair, yes, you'd have sufficient funds in that capital project to cover this initiative for 2024.
Okay, thank you. So if when the time comes, I would make a motion and hope for support to use those funds. Our year is almost up.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councilor McGuire Blaze, and Councilor Mady.
First of all, thank you guys for your service. And I want you to know that even though you don't have family here, you do sort of, because I definitely do look for you. I look forward to seeing you, and not just because you come into my shop, but you're a welcome added asset to our community by far. And I mean, if this doesn't pass, I'll personally make sure that some of these flags go up. And I know I kind of had a brief chat with Councilor McGuire Blaze. I would like to hear her proposal from a BIA perspective. I know they were a big part of this, so I'd like to hear what her concerns and or suggestions are.
Please.
Thank you through the chair. So thank you both for your service. Much appreciated. I do have family who are in the military, and I know how important the time can be for our veterans. So I'm not for charging the group to put up banners. I'm kind of conflicted with the proposal only because we do have two centers. We have Essex Center and Harrow Center. I know in Essex Center, the BIA had put towards the banner program $50,000. And so when we were doing the streetscape, they wrote a letter, they were putting $50,000 towards the banner program, and that's what their letter stated. So I feel like in Essex Center, the BIA should have more of a say. Now, I spoke with members of the BIA regarding this topic over the weekend, and they're not opposed to having veterans banners up. But what we are looking at is we're going to be allowing banners to be changed out, as you said, possibly 12 times. With an investment of $50,000, that doesn't leave much room for the BIA and the town banners. What I was hoping that we could, what I'm proposing, and I think it has to come back because I don't know how it will look in Harrow, because the Harrow, I don't believe the chamber has contributed just as much towards the banner program in Harrow as the BIA has, but we would be looking at a similar thing. I don't think we should allow any other organizations to put banners up. We do flag raisings. We do all kinds of things. We promote, it's Autism Awareness Month. We do a lot of things, but I think our banner program should just be to our chamber, our BIA, and the town of Essex as a partnership. We need to promote from within, with the exception of our veterans. So when our BIA was putting together their banner program, when we were talking with Nelson back when this started in 2003, 2002, sorry, excuse me, the program was that we were going to change the banners out seasonally. So if and I've spoken with the BIA, the chair, we've met with the Essex Legion branch a couple of times and talked about the banner program. The BIA would have no problem with saying, okay, let's do town BIA in Harrow Chamber collaboration for winter, spring, summer. And our fall banners would be veterans banners, and they would be up from September to November. And then our banners would only be changed out 4 times a year. Now, talking with other members of council, it was suggested that we also include in our banner program milestones. So town milestones, so not national or regional milestones, but 73's 50th milestone, the town of Essex 100th birthday, big milestones within the town of Essex. We could promote it and we could use those in our banner program. I think, in my opinion, I think that would be a really great banner policy. It would make, I know for sure, the BIA and probably the chamber happy. It would relieve us from changing banners out every month. And I really don't like the suggestion that a group or organization could have a banner up for only a week. That seems like a waste of our resources a week. So that would be my suggestion. I would ask that, I don't know how to do that going forward, but maybe some conversation on what I think the banner program should look like. And that is how our BIA thinks in Essex Center, how it should look too. So thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. Great points. I didn't think about it. The idea, though, that the BIA should be looked at more favorably than anybody else, I don't know how much I'd agree with that, because everybody had to pay for those streetlights to go up, so we all kind of have equal rights to them. But if Councillor Verbeek was to make her motion, I might ask that instead of using council contingency, we just write the exception right now that our Legion, our veterans, are never to be charged for displaying banners in our town, period. Not just this year, but forever. So if you want to make an amendment or something like that, I would more than happily second that motion. But we can finish hearing what everybody else has to say. And thank you very much for your service.
Drusevich?
Through the chair. So what I'm hearing, Councillor Mady, is because we haven't incorporated that in this year's operating budget, we would still need a source to fund the operational costs that Manager Dick, it's not Kevin Gerard tonight, so sorry about that. Manager Macbeth is mentioned, right? So we would require some sort of post-budget approval for 24, and then I'm hearing that you'd like us to incorporate the cost of that in 2025 going forward. Is that correct?
There, just a question. Yeah, I don't disagree. I agree with Councillor Mady. We have to find a way to just fund specifically the veteran ones. But because from what I understand from the Salute Our Vets banner project, it's going to be significant. Don't we have to pull the plug like today? Don't we have to move forward with it to get all these up and prepared for the beginning of November? And is that realistic that we can have them all made and hung before November 1st this year? And yes, indeed, my motion would be to cover that cost with our contingency funds.
Beth and Councillor McGuire Blaze would like to help answer it, and then Councillor Guerin.
That was one other thing, and I'll use my model, Jake, here. I wanted to show you the banners are made for the Essex Center. I believe these are for. So we have an example of what they are. I was going to add in later on, but since it's kind of being brought up now, that we would make a motion or want to these to be approved and installed as soon as possible. So those are what we're hoping to hang. I believe there's 6 in Essex Center that are looking to be hung up. And so we would like council support, regardless if this passes tonight or not, that the council direct us to have these at least installed so they can get up as soon as possible for this year's Remembrance Day. Thank you.
So those aren't the banners that the Legion is talking about, actually, through the chair. The banners the Legion is talking about are going to be banners that feature veterans' faces with their names on them. So that is not what the Legion is here for today. The Legion is proposing not for 2024, but 2025, because there is not enough time between now and November to get all of them sold, because they will be a cost to them for the veterans' families. So that is, it's a program through the Legion that they're doing. So those are great, but those are not what the Legion is talking about. So what they're proposing, Councillor Verbeek, is for 2025 is what they're looking for. So it would be contingency funds or something in the 2025 budget.
You, Director Drusevich, is that something we can build into our budget?
Through the chair, so CA Sweet and I discussed this today, that this would be an initiative potentially into the Community Partnership Fund. And so that is already built into our budget. So what I suggest is council could make a pre-approval tonight for 2025s out of that fund. And we could go that way, or they could present an application like the rest of the applicants, and the Finance Committee approves those. It's council's appetite, what they'd like to do.
Money needed this year. Mr. Macbeth, let's take care of 2024 and then move to 2025.
No, these banners could be hung by operations and take care of it. If these aren't the ones for Essex, then these are the ones that they want to do in Harrow then. So we had been approached already to have these ones flown. So if there's anything that needs to be done this year, theoretically, we could do it out of our operations budget.
Mayor Bondi, I think to keep this moving forward, we saw some heads nodding. So if there's an appetite by council to kind of move forward with what Councilor McGuire Blaze said in terms of 4 times between the BIA chamber, town, and the Legions, we could come back with the policy amended to have that. So in terms of our policy would state that. And then moving forward in terms of finances, I think we would work with the 2 Legions to see how many banners are looking so we can get a true cost and incorporate that into the 2025 budget with the Community Partnership Fund.
Through the chair, I would like to put my motion forward that we only change the banners out 4 times a year. It's the collaboration between the BIA, the chamber, and the town, and the veterans being the 4th change out. At no cost to the veterans at all. Since it's written in there, do we need to use the I would hate for 6 years down the road for a council to say, no, we're not gonna support this program. Like, can we just say there's no fee associated with the banner changing?
You, Sweet.
Time there's a cost, we want to budget it somewhere. So that's why if we at least budget it for, it's accounted for in future years.
Thank you, through the chair. So another question that I have to ask, because I promised the Essex Legion I would. In Harrow Center, they have a lot of the big banners. In Essex Center, we don't. There's 16 spaces for a big banner as opposed to the small ones. If you guys took a look and saw the difference, is there any way that we could get more of the larger size banners? And if we can't do it in Essex Center, it was suggested, could we do it on the old gray posts coming up to the cenotaph? Sorry, I said that wrong. Coming up to just past Town
Hall. The banner arms can be purchased. It'd have to be purchased. We don't have them, right? But you could buy aftermarket ones that attach onto the poles. I'm sure there's something out in the marketplace that could be done and have them mounted there if that was the directed by council and came up with funding in order to purchase those items. I don't have a cost though at this time.
Here, can I put my motion forward then?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all my questions.
Is your motion to tweak the banner policy and have it come back with all of those recommendations? Okay, needing a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Shepley, any comments? Counselor Guerin?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, we're trying to build a policy tonight, which obviously there's some issues we have with the policy that's drafted. It's the first time go around. We heard their concerns. I mean, it's no brainer to me. I mean, when it comes to the Legion, but I mean, Harrow and Essex, we have to come up with a policy that fits both, and both of the communities' banners specifications are totally different. They are quite small in Essex, and most of them, we're talking 30 inches high by 28 inches wide. I mean, it's really tough to do what the Legion's envisioning doing. I've seen them in the States, in a lot of the cities in the States. They do a great job, but they're much larger. My recommendation would be, the only motion tonight that we should really be considering is just having to go back to administration and getting council input in behind the scenes on the tweaks and that we'd like to see in it, and having it come back. I mean, I don't want to get in a situation where we're using council's funds or committing council funds for future councils to put up banners either. I think they have to be, there has to be some type of an all-inclusive policy. Even at $40 a banner and 41 banners in town here, that's $1,640 every time. I mean, and then I can reach with an 8-foot step ladder. I mean, I don't know what kind of equipment we need to rent, but I get it. We have to cover some costs, but you flip them over 1,640 times 12 months, that's quite a bit of money.
Counselor Hammond, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, through you, your worship. I like it the way it's drawn up right now. It's kind of loosey-goosey, open for a lot of leeway here and there, and I would like to get it started in this without having to make anything specific as far as the number. I don't think we need to start dictating the number of times that we can change it, or really, I think there should be some sort of cost associated with the installation and taking down. Where are we as, I got one question as far as, I take it the organizations that are having the flags put up, would they be responsible for the storage and everything, aside from getting them produced? Is that my understanding? So basically, we're just looking at putting them up, taking them down, and providing a place for them to be. The way it's written up right now, I'm kind of okay with, just because it's really open and allows us some flexibility.
It's going to have to come back. Councilor McGuire Blaze does have a motion on the table that we tweak it A, B, C, D, E. So it's going to come back. We can then again tweak it if we want, or change it. I don't want to keep going here. Last comment, or no? Okay. So the motion is that we send the street light banner policy back to administration with the recommendations put forward by council, and then they bring it back to us. And then we already have those banners going up this year, and we're looking at 2025 for the rest of them. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you for coming out tonight. 10.2. Forgot where I was for a minute. 10.1. Sorry, 103 Center Street. This is our planning report on the zoning on 103 Center Street, to be read a third time and finally passed on October 7th. So Miss Rita Jabor, did you want to just give us the Coles notes if you can, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. So as you recall, a couple weeks ago, a statutory public meeting was held on September 23rd to review the merits of and to hear public comments on a proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 103 Center Street in Essex Center to utilize an existing single unit dwelling as a medical office. So for council's reference, we did include the public meeting presentation to the report. At the time, you had asked us to review matters related to a shared driveway and matters related to the reduction of on-street on-site parking, also known as off-street. With respect to the driveway, as per the town's fence bylaw, a fence cannot be constructed between the two driveways because it would be causing a potential impact to sight lines. Instead, the applicants propose and would implement alternative measures to delineate that driveway, such as through the placement of planters and other decorative instruments and elements. With respect to the reduction of on-site parking, the applicants have approached the Essex Retirees Social Club asking permission to use the premises for parking purposes, to which this has been granted. In addition, the applicant supports the expansion of the driveway, so we did look into that matter, and we found through calculation, making sure that the parking spaces meet the zoning bylaw regulations, that the expansion of the driveway by only 20 centimeters, so 0.2 meters, would result in a width of 5.5 meters, which would allow for an additional parking space side by side. So that in total would result in 3 on-site parking spaces, 1 in the garage, 2 within the driveway, bless you, with only having to expand and take away 20 centimeters of the lawn. Further expansion of the driveway, by the way, it could accommodate a 4th parking space. However, it would remove the existing mature tree and could potentially require relief from the minimum landscape front yard. So as such, bylaw 2364, which you had read a first and second time and provisionally adopted, has been amended slightly from what you first read. We included the provision requiring that the applicant provide 3 on-site parking spaces. A redlined version of the amended bylaw is also attached to your report for quick reference. Thank you.
I vote to keep the tree, but that's just me looking for direction from council that the planning report be received and that bylaw 2364 be read a 3rd time. We will get a motion on the table and then we can discuss it. Deputy Mayor, supported by Councilor Verbeek. Comments? I think it's great work. Councilor Meady.
I want to say thank you. That was wonderful. Any concern we had, you guys addressed and fixed them. Essex is lucky to have you. Thank you very much.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. We had you waited out tonight, eh? 10.2, release of securities for 80 Maidstone Avenue West. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the planning report be received and that the performance securities on file for 80 Maidstone Avenue West be reduced to $452,862.93, and that the performance securities in the amount of $227,843.42 plus any earned interest be returned to the developer. We do have moved by Councilor McGuire-Blaze, supported by Councilor Meady. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Planning 2024-28, notice of intent to designate and removal of properties from the Heritage Register. Mr. Boer?
As we continue with our heritage planning efforts, we have 3 action items for you tonight. The first being that council authorize a notice of intention to designate the lands municipally known as 18 Talbot Street North, or the former Bennigan's building in Essex Center, under Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The second being that council remove reference to the lands municipally known as 2547 County Road 20 East, which is the former Fina gas station in Harrow Center, from the Heritage Register. It's currently listed under the Heritage Register. And the third being that council withdraw the notice of intention to designate for 103 King Street West. It was known as John's Harness Shop, just withdraw the notice of intention to designate that was initially moved back in August. So we'll begin with the easy one, which is the notice of withdrawal. On September 3rd, council was presented with bylaw number 2358, being a bylaw to designate the former John McIntyre Harness Shop building at 103 King Street West in Harrow, and that bylaw was defeated. So under the Ontario Heritage Act, If there is a notice of intention to designate a property, then council has to formally withdraw that notice if they don't have any intention to designate. And what happens after that notice is withdrawn is the Ontario Heritage Act dictates that we must serve notice in the local newspapers. We must serve notice on the property owner to inform the public that that notice has been withdrawn. So this is simply to clean that up if it still is the intention of council to withdraw that notice. And at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Lozon to put up a very short presentation that we've prepared on the other two items. Thank you. And we'll begin with 18 Talbot Street North in Essex Center, which is the former Bennigan's building. So again, on August 12th of this year, Planning Services recommended that council issue a notice of intention to designate this building. This was the former Bennigan's building, but also originally was the former Imperial Bank building. The building was recommended for designation due to its design and its physical value, its historical and associative value, and its contextual value. Specifically, the former bank building is built in an Art Deco architectural style that is very rare in Essex. The bank branch was the first branch of the Imperial Bank of Canada to open south of London, Ontario, and the 11th branch to open in Canada. Council didn't issue a notice of intention to designate in August for the building. They requested instead that a report outlining the cultural heritage value of the building and the benefits of heritage designation be prepared for their consideration. We have added to this report a statement of cultural heritage value, which speaks a little bit more in depth about the criteria, the cultural heritage criteria that this property meets. The statement outlines the reasons why the building has cultural heritage value, and it also includes a description of the key heritage attributes that contribute to the cultural heritage value of the building, including the building's mass, style, form, and as well as the little reading on top of the door that says Essex Branch. So in terms of the benefits, I think I've said this before, and council's very aware that designation allows a municipality to manage the alteration requests for properties with cultural heritage value. Failure to designate a property that is deemed to have cultural heritage value places a building or place at a greater risk for alteration or demolition, to which the town will have no means to control. And loss of the cultural heritage resource will have a very visible impact on the streetscape of Essex Center and the community. Therefore, staff is recommending that a notice of intention to designate be issued for 18 Talbot Street North. And this is also because it does meet at least two of the cultural heritage criteria that's outlined in Ontario regulation. Our recommendation is supported by the Essex Municipal Heritage Committee. It was brought back twice to the committee for consideration on Thursday, June 27th and on Thursday, July 25th. They reviewed the cultural heritage value and interest of the property, and they also determined through resolution that it should be recommended to council for designation. Secondly, or lastly, we're going to discuss the removal of 2547 County Road 20 East, the former Fina gas station, from the Heritage Register. So as I mentioned earlier, the gas station is listed on the register. So listing provides interim protection from demolition. We did review the cultural heritage value of the property. We did extensive research to determine if it can at least meet two criteria to recommend for designation. And although the gas station was built in 1956 by the Petrofina Company, which was a Belgian company during their North American expansion, and although the building has architectural style, which is very reminiscent of these types of buildings that were built by Petrofina Company throughout Canada, we could not find a second criteria to support designation for this property. So when we can't find a second criteria, it is no longer a candidate, and our recommendation is that it be removed from the Heritage Register. We have reviewed this opinion with our Heritage Committee, and they also agree that it should be removed. And we don't take it lightly when we're recommending a building is removed from the Heritage Register. We have done exhaustive research, and we simply cannot find another criteria that it would fall under. Thank you.
Three recommendations in front of us, looking for direction from council that the planning report be received and that council authorize a notice of intent to designate for the lands known as 18 Talbot Street, that council remove reference to lands known as 2547 County Road 20 East, and that council withdraw notice of intent to designate 103 King Street West in Harrow. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Allard. Questions, comments? Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. I still struggle with approving 18 Talbot Street. So when it came to council last time, I asked to see any kind of structural engineering, any kind of report like that, which we did not get. Because there is none. That's what the email said. There is no engineering report. That concerns me. Can you explain to us what will happen? We designate the building as a heritage building. We don't know the integrity of the building at the moment. Someone purchases it and they want to do something with it and the building is not structurally sound. Do they need to just repair the building because it's a historical building, or would they be allowed to take it down? Sorry, through the chair, I don't know if I said that.
And through the chair, when a person proposes to do anything with a building, they almost likely always need a building permit. And if the structural integrity of that building is not there, then they have to comply whether they're a designated property or not with the building code. The added advantage of having a property that is designated under the Ontario Heritage Act is that we do have the Heritage Grant, which would provide up to $10,000 to help with the repair and restoration of that building. Now, there are some buildings that are designated, that might be designated, that are beyond repair, and the cost of repairing them and stabilizing them and making them actually safe for members of the public or residents of the building to use, it's simply not there. So there are instances, unfortunately, where those designations have to be repealed because they're just a public health and safety concern. So in those instances, a demolition request for a heritage building would have to come to council, and council would have to consider the facts in front of it to determine whether it should be removed or not.
So that makes me happy that it could come to council. We could agree to take the building down. My concern is that I don't think it's structurally sound. We went in there already. We said it was uninhabitable. And when we asked to do an engineering report, the doors were just shut and we weren't allowed to go back in. So my concern is that it's now sat there. Is it structurally sound? When someone does go to purchase it and they do go to fix it, how much extra cost will it be for them to go through these hoops? I just don't, my concern to the rest of council and to everybody is I don't want, hopefully we can do something with this property tomorrow, but I don't want them to have to sit there and jump through all of these hoops if they want to take, if the choice is that it's not structurally sound, they need to take the building down and build us something really great in the town of Essex. How much extra work is it if it's a historical building?
These questions, because it gives me an opportunity to really speak to how the heritage designation and alteration process. So we have worked as a council and administration to really streamline the process so that if there does need to be an alteration to a heritage building, they would simply work with the planning department. We'd open up the bylaw. We determine if the alteration was going to affect the heritage attributes. If it's structural, likely not. It's just interior work. And they would be able to move on to a building permit the next day. So we have tried to streamline it so that they don't have to come back to council for those alterations. But because demolition means you're going to potentially lose the cultural resource, we wanted to put that back with council because it is a big request. So in terms of alterations, you do have to take one extra step back and speak to the planning department, which may need to speak to the heritage committee, but we do our best to ensure that the process is streamlined and as quick as possible.
Table, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Capital Works and Asset Management Sidewalk at Victoria Ave and Thomas Street. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Capital Works and Asset Management report be received and that council direct administration to start negotiations with the property owner of 65 Victoria Ave for an easement over the area required to complete a sidewalk connection to the new trail on Victoria Avenue. Moved by Councillor Guerin, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Capital Works and Asset Management 2024-16 driveway at 33 Irwin Avenue. Mr. David Macbeth to walk us through this one, please.
Madam Mayor, through the chair. So as requested by council, administrative sought a price from our Irwin Avenue contractor to widen the newly constructed driveway approximately 2 to 3 more feet to bring it up to the edge of the house that it currently exists. To complete this work at this time, it would be a cost of $8,588, including non-refundable HST. And that the higher cost is due to the fact that the existing driveway would need to have portions removed, the curb would need to be cut, and then the new concrete poured, doweled in order to give it structural support, and then the landscaping adjacent to it restored. Thank you.
Comments from members of council. Councillor Guerin.
Thanks, through the mayor. Yeah, so my question, I guess, is there's other driveways down there that there was some agreements made with between the town and the property owners to widen the driveways prior to, it sounds like, forming and pouring. And in the case of 33 Irwin, I'm assuming that the discussions happened after the fact. That's all I can gather from this, because I don't understand why up the road in some cases where they're not even close to 25 feet wide, they're asking for, say, 2 feet more than what was there. They're getting it. And in the case of 33 Irwin, why we determined it was going to be this big, and now he wants a couple more feet, but we poured, then we can do it, but he's got to pay for it because now we got to cut out the curbing. I don't understand how this all got rung around the circle here, because if there was a deadline that the property owners had where they had to make that decision whether they wanted a wider driveway or not, then I'm not sure if they were given that notice. But even that being said, who's determining and how are we determining the width of all the driveways and whether or not we're going to allow property owner A to be a little bit wider than the next guy? I don't understand how that's all working. If you told me it's because we want to maximize as much parking in the streets as we can, and in this situation here, we're going to put a 13-foot drive here, which is perfect because I have a 1-car garage. And over here, we're going to put a 1-car as well because it's also a 1-car garage and we can park 2 cars, and I understand that. But if it's just because we want to give them 15 or we want to give them 17, I don't understand how we're figuring that out. We have a delegate in front of us here that's been calling and speaking with council members for what feels like right now at least 5 weeks. I know when I was approached about it, nothing was roughed in yet when I went and met with them. There was no roughed in sidewalk. There was no roughed in driveway. There was some communication between him and administration trying to get to a resolve. Next thing you know, everything's roughed in and it's still not the way he thought it was going to be. I just don't understand how we got to this on this particular property. Some of the other ones down there, I understand. So just looking for administration to relieve me of some of the frustration I have with this one.
So it was not the town that approached for any additional widening. So the way that the process went is that we had hired our engineering consultant. They surveyed all the existing driveways, and as part of their detailed design, we matched the driveways at the property line. They were given an additional 1 foot on either side for a flare to allow approach in, but we were matching what was existing. What happened is residents on the street reached out to the contractor. The town did not initiate this through administration, and they approached the contractor to get a price to get additional concrete, whether it's behind their existing driveway or to widen it. And those people made side deals with the contractor. The town was only paying for the portion per our contract drawings. Anything above and beyond, the contractor worked out a price with those people, and that's how they have. Some people got the works and others didn't. So it wasn't coordinated through administration. It was done by the residents themselves. So the you had asked about the width. So the widths were not determined arbitrarily. They were surveyed and the detailed design matched the existing at the property line. So that's how each width of driveway was determined. And speaking for the resident at 33 Irwin, he brought up his concerns. We did approach him at the time after the curbs were poured, but prior to the driveway forming. We brought an option to go wider. There was a issue on the one side where the flare was not done correctly. We offered to remove it. He didn't want that. He wanted it straight. We offered then to straighten out the one side so it would look proper, right? He took us up on that and we had done it, but we had matched in at the property line to his driveway width. He has asked further though to have an additional 2 to 3 feet to bring the driveway up to the edge of his house, right? The original curb cut at the road was wider than what was standard for his driveway because it would have put a driveway in front of his house where we wouldn't have had proper depth to fit a car where it's parking perpendicular to the road from the curb to his property line. So we resolved the issues and he wasn't the only person who had his curb cut adjusted as part of that as well. There are other issues that we dealt with down the road, as you're well aware of, with people who didn't have driveway approaches that met our standards.
Yeah, so down the road, I know of one home I can think of off the top of my head that's got that same situation where the driveway is now past the edge of their house and into their front yard. So we've allowed it. I don't know who's allowed it, but we've allowed it. Who's given the contractor the authority to meet with a resident, a property owner, and saying, yeah, it was spec'd at 15 feet, but you want 3 feet more further? Sure, we won't cut it out. We'll cut it more for you. Who's given him that authority to do that?
Through the chair, since we were already pouring the curbs at the time, it was poured at that time. We don't need to have driveway permits because it's being done by a general contractor. The driveways were all confirmed that they were going wider through our infrastructure services to make sure that they weren't exceeding our current standards of the maximum of 25 feet. But otherwise, if the driveway could go in, we were going to try and accommodate the residents' requests as long as it didn't exceed our standards. So everything still comes in through the infrastructure services department. It's where the permits would be applied for if it wasn't. So we went and inspected the driveways and the proposed increases with the contractor when they made their deals. But otherwise, driveways were put in per the contract.
So the design team designs the street, says this is all the driveways and this is the widths of the various widths of them. Then a property owner complains. The contractor and the town say it's okay. We haven't poured anything yet, so we'll make it wider. Who cares about the design? Is that what I'm understanding?
Madam Mayor, through the chair, it's not that who cares, it's there, it's reviewed, right? So our department reviews it to see if the driveway approach is per the standards, right? They are paying for the width. The town already has a set contract for width. We look and see if the standards can be done and whether or not an extra driveway width could be accommodated if it falls within our standards.
To 33 Irwin, then, it's of the town's opinion and possibly the contractor's opinion that where that driveway is poured and where the curb cutout is the maximum he can actually have.
Mayor, through the chair, the driveway width for that driveway on the one side, as I mentioned, it was not correct. The flare was off, but it was reviewed with the resident. But otherwise, yes, the driveway where it meets up at the property line is the width that it should have been. Madam Mayor, through you. So just further to what Joe's saying, just so that, so I'm really trying to understand this one, how we got here today, how we ended up here. So the width, do we know what the opening was? You said it wasn't cut properly before, so he had a wider curb cut. How wide was his driveway prior to us doing this? Do we know what that measurement was? Through the chair, the driveway at the property line, I'm going off of memory, but I believe it was 13 feet, but the curb cut down at the curb was put in at 25. So I guess my question is that if the curb cut was at 25, was there no way that we could have accommodated him, maybe made it 18 or something that would maybe move it over a little bit? Because if he had a 25-foot opening, but it wasn't lined up correctly, could we have gone 18 just to just to appease him to give him what he kind of had, even though he wasn't maybe utilizing it that way. I'm just trying to find a solution here, because I mean, I've been by, the driveway seems kind of small for me, but based on what he's telling me that it was 25 feet before, and now he's got such a small driveway. I kind of sympathize with him how we got here. I don't know that there was maybe I just feel like there maybe wasn't enough, let's work with him on this particular. I'm not suggesting that you guys didn't, I'm just saying from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, it's just, if you had a 25-foot opening and you cut me down to a 20, that's great. But if you had 25 and you cut me down to 13, I'd probably be pretty upset too. I'm just wondering if when we reduced it, was the option that he could go bigger if he paid for it? Is that what I'm understanding? And
that option was brought up to have the resident go and pay for the additional 2 to 3 feet that it would be to bring it up to where the house is where he requested it to go. It was done at the time when it was still formed, and we could have made it at that time, but it was never taken. As for the 25 feet, I got a history on that from our road superintendent, Al Deemer. The curb, as you're well aware, the road was in poor shape. They ended up trying to cut it. My understanding is it went wider, right? But realistically, the curb, it was such in bad shape that they ended up just letting it go up to the 25. But I don't know why it would have been. Like I said, the driveway would not have permitted a space. There's a sidewalk that was there. You could not have pulled into that driveway to park a normal vehicle. And we can't look at it as I had a small vehicle or I'm parking something there, because something else could go in that space. And then theoretically you're blocking the sidewalk. So that's why it was determined not to go wider during the detailed design stage. But the additional 2 to 3 feet was offered during the time of construction after, like, it was formed, where we could have moved it, but it was not taken up on to do so at that time.
First question I have is, so up the road, if the neighbor had 25 feet and it didn't interfere with anything, he would have got 25 feet, wouldn't have to pay anything. Is my understanding that portion correct?
25 feet before they would have got 25 feet back.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you for that. So understanding that. So, and then what you're saying is he was offered additional footage and he declined, is what you're telling me then.
So yes, so at the time when we had it formed up and we decided that we square it off, there was conversation that it could be put in wider, but we had brought up that the other residents down the road who had requested wider driveways made deals with the contractor. We offered to put them in contact with the contractor. It was not taken up on that offer.
So I'm wondering, I mean, and I think this is where we have the disconnect. I think the residents looking at the neighbor up the road has got 25 feet. That didn't interfere. He got it paid for. He got it put in, replaced. He's done. His didn't conform. He got 14 or 13 feet. I'm not sure what the measurement was. He was offered additional to work with him, but he had to pay for it. And I think that's the disconnect that we're at today. And it's kind of the impasse that we're all trying to figure out where we can solve it without having any more issues coming back.
Provide further clarification on that. His driveway was a gravel driveway. So even though it was cut, based on our standards at the time, it was not done correctly. It should have had a hardscape surface through the right of way. That is our standard, right? After you're on private property, you would have gravel. So the one down the road that you'd be referring to, right, would have had a proper hardscaped driveway, right? This one had a curb cut and that's it. It had gravel in some of the approach, right? Tapered back down up towards the house, which once again, not our standard. Why it was done that way before my time, I don't want to throw shade on anybody else. But so when we went and surveyed it, we had gone and put it to where the width should have been at the property line, which is how we determined everyone else's driveway. If it was up the road, they would have got wider because they're already at our standard. Everybody else, so if someone had a 15-foot driveway, they're like, can I get a 25-foot driveway? If they had the ability to put in up to a 20-foot, 5-foot wide curb cut with a 23-foot wide driveway, and then they were going to pay the contractor for the difference, we allowed them to do that because the road was being reconstructed and the curbs formed. So instead of them having to come back and cut out the driveway and get a permit later, it made the most sense and easiest on the residents to allow them to do that. So that's how it was determined. Thank you.
Thinking at this point, I would like us to table this report and give an opportunity, because I've heard from the delegates. I've also heard from administration, and unfortunately we can't hear both sides tonight. I'm wondering if potentially the ward reps, and I know this is kind of out of the box and some people might not be happy about this, but this is a challenging one for me. I'm going to admit it's not black and white. And I would like the opportunity to meet with our staff and 33 Irwin on site, perhaps with the deputy mayor and the ward reps. So I'm seeking council to see if there's appetite to table this until we talk to both people in person. Unless you have some other direction you want to provide, council. Councillor Guerin. Environmental Services, excuse me, Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Intake 2. Director Drusevich.
Good evening, council. I'm going to make your night longer. I'm sorry, because I've got quite a bit of speaking notes on the next few. This report is seeking council's direction on applying for the second intake of the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund grant stream. On April 2nd, council approved proceeding with an application for the Housing Enabling Systems Fund. To qualify for the grant, design was required to meet the grant timelines. Design in the amount of just over 2.1 million was approved and is currently in progress. There was some additional costs, so it was a total project approval of approximately $2.6 million. In mid-August, the town was advised that we were not successful in obtaining intake 1 of this grant. However, the fund opened up another intake with the exact same features of intake 1. Given the town is undergoing design currently and the application is ready to submit, administration requires direction as to if the second application should be made. To refresh council on the proposed funding model, if we were successful in the grant, our contribution required is 27% of the total project cost. The total project cost is around approximately $40 million. And so debt in the amount of $9 million would be required for this project. Should we not proceed, then construction should occur sometime after 2033, and debt in the amount of $40 million would be expected. In both plans, the debt would be repaid with development charges and wastewater fees. There is risk present in this model because we must repay the debt. Therefore, in order to repay it, development must occur because development charges is how we are going to repay the debt. Should development not occur in Colchester, we would have to find monies from other sources such as taxation in the interim in order to repay the debt, as the plan is dependent on this and relies on development in Ward 3 occurring. The model, should council proceed with the application, does fit within the town's debt management policy, should we be approved for intake 2 of the grant. At this point, there are 2 options in front of council, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on the particulars of the first grant application and the report at hand.
Members of council, direction. Councillor Aller, then Councillor Verbeek.
To Director Drusevich, was there any details put into why we did not get the grant?
Unfortunately, there were not. There was no feedback provided, other than they had a very large volume of applicants with only a limited amount of funding.
Councillor Hammond.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So am I understanding this right? That if we apply a second time, and this time we receive the grant, we're going to be on the hook for $40 million of the project in a short period of time?
Through the chair, if we are successful in receiving the grant, what we have applied for in intake 1 is 73% of the project. So the grant would cover most of the project should we be successful in it. We would be required to contribute 23% of the $40 million.
Yes, through you. To my understanding, we're still waiting to receive the latter part of this survey by Santec. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, design is currently in progress. I
Okay.
can let Manager Macbeth comment on where the progress is of that design.
We're still pretty early on. We're still completing studies, and they have already come out with a approximate layout of the site, but they have to do the detailed design. I think we're probably around the 25% mark right now on the project overall.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, and like, the indications I'm getting from the province is that they're not getting ready to dole out any kind of money to smaller municipalities like us, especially out in Colchester. But we have a survey and a study coming in that could prove be valuable to us in the future should development occur. I'm leaning towards not applying for this at this time for this next series because I don't think we'll get it anyways. But I'm really curious to see what the remainder of this this study comes, because let's face it, with technology changing the way it does, there might be some technical improvements that can save us a bundle of money should this development that we need happen in the future.
Thank you. Through the chair. When council approved the design on April 2nd, it was of the notion that designs can typically be shelved. We as administration would have to ensure that that design remains relevant. So it's not that it would be considered a lost cost entirely. Just to provide a little bit more clarification to Councillor Verbeek's question on what our total contribution would be. The exact number was in the previous report. It was attached. So if approved for the grant would be $12.4 million of the town's money. 9 million of that would be debt.
Thank you, and through your worship. Yeah, at the appropriate time, I'd move that we not go forward with applying for the second round of intake. I think there's a need to delay applying for new funding until a more fair and funding model is established. Given that the Colchester water pollution plant is primarily driven by future development, it may not be immediately necessary. I think it'd be prudent to first decide the financial business behind it. Furthermore, given that the town's unlikely to receive the full amount, I think proceeding now would place a heavy financial burden on the residents.
By Councilor Beatty, that council not proceed with a second application, supported by Councillor Allard. Further questions to the motion? Councillor Hammond?
Just got one more question in regarding to our financial situation. I'm guessing that if we hadn't committed ourselves to $40 million improvements here in the town of Essex, that we'd have a lot more room to invest in infrastructure out in Colchester and Harrow. Is that not true?
Through the chair, I don't think it's a fair statement to make, if I'm being honest, just simply because growth pays for growth. And so development charges that we've collected in Ward 1 have paid for the upgrades in Ward 1. We'd be following the same model here, where development that occurs in Ward 3 should pay for development in Ward 3. So we're in the midst of that debt repayment for Ward 1 that you're referring to, and we would still have the capacity to take on this project should we choose to. So it's not that one project has interfered with the other. We'd still be able to do both should council wish to.
Just curious if you could touch on, you talked about the upkeep of the plan so they stay relevant, because if we do it now, we're in 2035, that's 10 years, things change. Is there any idea what the cost is going to be to keep those plans updated so that when we go to use them, we're not spending an additional $2-3 million to update them at that time? Is there any idea what that cost could be? I know it would be a guesstimate, but I just wondered if there's any idea and how often we would have to look at updating them in order to keep them relevant.
Through the chair, ultimately the detailed design will be done, right, as part of the EA that was been passed, right? So as part of the EA, the sequence batch reactor plant was the model chosen based off of the best scenario for the residents. At the time of whenever we go to construction, if it's farther down the line, we could look to see if there's any type of engineering improvements that have been made to facilitate into the plant, right? Depending on how many more years down the road. But ultimately, right now, it's being built based on the style of plant with the best technology for it, right? So yeah, we would still be proceeding with the engineering design. It'll just be shelved if we don't get a grant or move forward with it until a time where either development forces us to, or the grant, we apply and win one in the future, at which time we would have to look. Cost, it's impossible to know because we don't know what the technology could be, what the cost is, but I would assume that we'd have to pay it'd be somewhere in the 5-figure range, right? Not more than 6 figures, in order to have the consultant Stantec go back through the drawings. If it's far enough down the line, it'd be my guess, right? They wouldn't have to redo everything because I don't think the plant would change overall in functionality. It is a mirrored plant for the 20-year now plus 20-year future down the line. So we wouldn't expect great changes because of the way that we're doing it. There would be small things on the inside that might update, things that might change that way. So it's too hard to guess, but I'm guessing it would still be, several $1,000s I'd pay them later on to update our draw.
Motion, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to Legal and Legislative Services, 2025 regular council meeting dates. Needing a mover and a seconder that the dates for our regular council meetings be approved for 2025. Moved by Councilor Beek, supported by Councilor Mady. All in favor? That's carried. Corporate Services 2024-06, Water, Wastewater Billing and Collection Policy Revisions. Director Drusevich.
Thank you, through the chair. In front of council tonight is a report that was drafted in response to a letter received by the town from the ombudsman. Prior to the billing function being performed by the town became aware of a complaint lodged to the ombudsman regarding a landlord and tenant situation. The letter is attached to the report that council is reviewing tonight. The situation involved a landlord who was unhappy about his lack of notice on utility arrears being added to his tax account or his ability to shut off water to his tenant. They identified some fairness concerns with the water and wastewater billing and collection practices and procedures here at the town, as well as ELK Energy, who is our previous subcontractor of this function. Before issuing their recommendations, they did applaud the town in the steps that we took throughout its investigation to address these issues prior to the findings even being issued. If council recalls, in January of 2024, we adopted a water collection policy, and that was a collaborative project with the ombudsman to ensure that we were trying to incorporate any of their findings into that policy. They state specifically in the letter that in particular, they are pleased to see that the town's policy appears to address the key fairness issues they identified. Specifically regarding notice to property owners of the property tax additions. In their findings, they reference 2 best practices for review. The first being that we properly notify property owners of arrears, which was done so in that January 2024 policy. And the second being that we consider and investigate the practice of water disconnects at the instruction of landlords. So within the report, administration has reviewed the potential of a landlord water disconnect policy and its potential benefits and implications as instructed by the ombudsman. A landlord disconnect policy, if properly drafted, could lead to sooner collection of arrears and avoid the transfer to the landlord account altogether. However, there are several operational impacts that need to be considered with a landlord water disconnect policy, or really any water disconnect policy. From infrastructure's perspective, water disconnects take a large portion of staff time in an already limited staff count. A charge could be implemented for the shutoff. However, it is still staff time. And the tenant, if they're continuing to not pay, what happens at the end of the day is it will be on the landlord's taxes. So the trend would still continue. It also puts staff in confrontational and difficult situations. For example, shutoff could result in vulnerable citizens such as children or elderly not having access to water at the instruction of a landlord and citizen dispute. So in the electricity world, they only perform shutoffs for half of the year because it is considered a basic need. So if this was a policy we were looking to explore, we would have to look at that limitation as well. We did reach out to local municipalities, and it appears that the majority of them do not have a disconnect policy specifically geared towards landlords. So they do, Leamington is one where they do disconnects for arrears. The other municipalities who have the function in-house of billing do not perform that. They would perform what we are recommending in the water collection policy, being the elimination of tenant accounts. So we took a step back after reviewing what disconnects mean, and we asked, what is the true issue here? So not specifically laid out in the letter, but the principal main issue appears to be that landlords are often not aware of tenant arrears balances, and they lack the ability to access the account, right? So because of privacy concerns, we can't allow them vision on the account. Also, from a town perspective, administratively, tenant accounts are currently a large portion, nearly 30% each month of the arrears that we are adding to the tax accounts. So this results in additional printing costs for the notice required, as well as additional administration time. Given this, administration decided on an alternative approach to address these issues, being the elimination of tenant accounts. So within the report is the recommendation that the town consider the elimination of primary tenant accounts effective April 1st, 2025. This would be done very carefully with direct mailouts to all landlords and tenants. Landlords would be able to include a tenant on their account as secondary if they wished, and they could direct the bill to the tenant as well, so that it wouldn't disrupt any of their current processes. A detailed media campaign is also detailed within the report. Administration believes this is the first step to the solution in the issues raised in the ombudsman letter, which included the lack of visibility on account and consumption, the lack of knowledge on the account balance, and the lack of control over the account in general. Water disconnects, we believe, could be investigated should this first step not work. That would be our recommendation at this point. So at this point, we are seeking council's approval of the revised water collection policy, with all changes have been tracked and it's attached to the report. But the main and most significant change would be that the town seek to eliminate tenant accounts as of April 1st, 2025. At this point, I'd be happy to take any questions that council might have on the recommendations.
Any questions? Councillor Hammond.
Oh, yes, through you, Chair. So everybody come 2025, as far as landlords, will be billing their tenants themselves with their bill. Is that the intention that we're looking for?
Through the chair, the town would take the previous ownership, which would have been a tenant, right? They would have been there as the account owner, and we'll revert it to the landlord.
Okay, so this transition, does it come at a cost? Like in the meantime, I believe any new tenant in the meantime will be subject to the change prior to the date. But in the meantime, is there a cost associated with this transferring this? And is it on the, and what is it to the landlord?
Through the chair. So what we've predicted is that there would be a cost for the media campaign that we're considering, but it would be offset by the savings in postage, because we're anticipating that by making this change, we won't have nearly the amount of arrears that we're mailing out each month, right? The landlords will be able to see that account, and the accounts will be paid more timely. So we're recommending it would actually be a net cost savings of approximately $1,150 a year.
There's no administration fee imposed on the landlord or the tenant to make this transition to the new billing. Okay.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thanks, through the mayor. Yeah, the landlord only accounts is kind of where I wanted it when we took it over. And the explanation we received was it was going to be voluntary because it was going to be very hard to go and get all this in. I got to think that's got to be more work to do that than it is to go shut off someone's water. I can't believe there's that many cases on a regular basis that we need to have our town going in and shutting off water on an everyday basis. I just don't get that. But anyways, if we can get, I don't know how you're going to do it, but if you can get what do you think roughly, Kate, of the properties that are on accounts, landlord versus the ones that are still in tenants? What percentage do you think that is?
Through the chair, we currently have approximately 1,000 tenant accounts from what we can tell, and compared to about 7,000 total water accounts. So 1/7 of our accounts are currently tenants.
Okay, through the chair. Yeah, so through the chair. So we have to go and hunt down 1,000. It's going to be in the best interest of the landlord though, because they're going to not get those arrears. We're going to be, because they're going to be the one who's responsible to pay for it. I like that approach. I still think it's going to be way more work than we think it's going to be. I think it's going to probably end up taking a long time. I don't understand why we can't do a simple water disconnect policy at the cost of the landlord. That's the same thing. You're saying the landlord, the tenant can have the account in their name, but if it goes in arrear a certain amount of dollars or 90 days, you have the right to come to us and pay to have the town come and shut the water off. I prefer that much better than us chasing our tail, trying to, because on any given day, a new business moves out and a new business moves in, and we're going to be chasing our tail, I think.
Through the chair, we do have our manager of environmental services, Rob Mackey, on the line. He has some experience with water disconnects. I think it might be valuable to hear from him on the impacts that water disconnects can have, right? So I'm happy to entertain it, but I think we would also require direction to put a pause on this and revise the policy accordingly. It would take work to draft something of that nature and do it properly, but I'll let Rob go further.
Mr. Mackey.
Good afternoon, Council. Through your worship, water disconnects have become very like a touchy confrontational situation over the last few years. In my previous roles, I used to do water disconnects with a local municipality for arrears. Pretty much every single month, we were shutting off probably about a dozen customers, different buildings, and the situations would always become very confrontational. It takes up a lot of staff resources. You're typically sending 2 staff members to a premise to perform the shut off, just as in strength in numbers, because the situation has usually becomes very confrontational. And I'll be honest, over the last few years, pretty much since the pandemic, we've just noticed that everything is becoming a lot more confrontational with the public. And the increase in the confrontations that we're having. So it's possible to do the disconnects, but with the disconnects, you have to think that we are putting our staff in a highly confrontational situation. There's also potential for landlords to abuse the water disconnect policies and utilize it in their favor. As Director Drusevich noted earlier, our environmental service department runs very, very lean in comparison to local municipalities. Disconnects take up a significant amount of our staff resources, and they would put a huge strain on our day-to-day operations.
Mayor Shepley, then Councilor Verbeek.
Madam Mayor, I just want to say I appreciate the policy. I think we're on the right track. Previously, that we've had property owners that aren't able to get the information, so they can even pursue the tenant court with proper materials. So this gives them that. It doesn't give them the option to shut the water off. I struggle with that. I see the need for it, but I think that there's some things that we would have to take into consideration, especially with what Mr. Mackey just told us. I wasn't aware of that aspect, never thought of that aspect of it. I think the cost would have to be a considerable cost so that it couldn't be used as a punishment. Just like hydro in the wintertime is essential, I think water is essential year round. So I think it's a real tricky thing to be shutting water off on anybody. But I do think eventually we may have to get there. But I think this is a start in the right direction. It at least gets all our property owners on their own account. so that they have all the information they need. And then if we need to further look at this, we could take that next step. But I think there would have to be some real thoughts on a higher cost that it would, because we would have to recover the staff costs and everything else that would go along with it. And, you know, I don't think we're there yet. I think it's a really good start in the right direction, though. Thank you for all your hard work. I'll support it.
And Mayor, yep, thank you very much for your hard work on this. I can't help but get back to our starting point with this. The reason that this all began was to address concerns about customer service. And I don't think, I'd like to see any kind of water turnoff as a very, very last option to look at. But I imagine by bringing it, you know, tenants change. Like I think Councillor Guerin pointed out, they change often. The owner's way less likely. And sure, it's going to be a bit of a daunting task, but if we put the messaging out there to the owners that are renting these places, like you know, there's a risk that you could be getting tagged with big unpaid and this is going to go on your taxes. And if we put the clear message out that the idea behind this is to eliminate their risk and to protect them, you may have a great number of them doing the changeover with you voluntarily. Sure, there's going to be some labor. You're going to have to chase some down, but I don't know that if we do this right and we get the messaging out there, that they won't be coming to you to make the change.
No, that's a great point. Because tenant accounts currently make up 30% of our arrears, we are already in contact with most of the landlords. So not most, 30% of them at least at a minimum, on a regular monthly basis. We just don't have policy behind us being able to add them as a primary account holder. So this gives us the policy and authority to do that. So we don't think it's going to be as daunting of a task as you expect because we have all of their primary mailing addresses. A lot of them already want to make this change. They just don't have the policy behind it to do it.
Thank you. I think it's a great policy. I think we start here. I don't want to delay this. We certainly don't want to implement this in 2026. We want to get it done in 2025. So at this point, looking for a motion that corporate services report be received and that council approve the attached revised water, wastewater billing and collection policy, including the elimination of tenants as primary account holders effective April 1st, 2025. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Allard. Any further comments? Councillor Guerin.
Thanks, City Mayor. I'm going to support it because it's better than the alternative we're dealing with right now. I just think it's still going to be an extreme amount of work on the town's behalf. I understand what Mr. Mackey's saying about the confrontations and stuff like that. And I understand what Councillor Beek's saying too. I mean, the last thing you want to do is shut someone's water off. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't pay your hydro, they're shutting it off. If you don't pay for your car, they're sending someone to get it. We're not in the charity business. That's all I'm going to say about it. But I'm going to support it because I want to get those landlords on the accounts and get the tenants off.
And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Corporate Services adoption of 2024 development charge bylaw and 2024 Part 8 charges. Director Drusevich.
Thank you. Me again. Through the chair, I'll try to make development charges as exciting as I possibly can. I know it's getting late. So the purpose of the development charge is to recover capital costs associated with growth. The capital costs are in addition to what we would normally see within a subdivision. So if council recalls, on August 27th, was when our bylaw was set to expire. So we did a minor amendment and we extended it to December 31st. But all the while from June 2023 until May of this year, we worked closely with Watson Associates to get the proposed background study in front of council. The proposed background study was released on July 26th of 2024. We had a public meeting on August 12th as mandated by the Development Charge Act. We did have several delegates in attendance, including existing property owners as well as developers. All of their questions have been addressed or responded to either at that night in public forum or we did create a webpage and posted all answers and questions through that webpage. As detailed in the report, we are recommending the removal of some exemptions mainly commercial development, currently has a full 100% waiver. We are recommending the elimination of that, as well as the phased in 25% waiver within Harrow Residential. Everything is detailed within the report, but what is being recommended tonight is that exemptions mirror that of legislation. So that is what we see with all of our local comparators as far as elective or non-mandatory exemptions go. So that is what is in front of council tonight. What administration is seeking is approval of both bylaws, one being a bylaw for the imposition of the development charges reflective of all projects listed within that background study, and the Part 12 charges as discussed at the August 12th meeting. Should council have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mitch, questions, concerns from members of council? I do have one. It's kind of related to this, but the county talked about a community improvement program. Do we have any further update on that at the county level? And that was going to kind of pair with us removing our development charges. Director Chadwick?
Mayor Bondi, if you recall, we successfully received a grant application from the Rural Economic Development Fund. We, with those funds, will be retaining the services of a consultant to assist in preparing a CIP at the municipal level for large-scale industrial development. And what that would do is what we're seeking is eligibility for, large-scale industrial development, certain threshold for number of jobs, for example. And our intent is to match, or vice versa. The county is offering a match for a municipal CIP for such projects. So we want to ensure that we're in line with the criteria, the eligibility criteria. I do understand that the county has adopted those, we'll say, policies within the county's official plan, but the eligibility criteria has not been set. We are at a perfect time to be able to retain our own consultant to do that work. We are also planning on releasing that RFP sometime in the new year. Just like most RFPs, we'd like to strategically post at a time where it's not around the holidays. So stay tuned for more information on that.
Questions, comments from members of council? Looking for a mover and a seconder that the adoption of the 2024 development charges bylaw and 2024 Part 12 charges be received, and that it be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on October 7th. And bylaw 2385 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on October 7th. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Hammond, all in favor? Opposed? That carried. Community Services Special Event Notice, Essex Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony, needing a mover and a seconder that the Community Services report be received and that council approve closing Talbot Street North and South from Cameron Avenue to Bryan Avenue West on November 11th between 10:15 a.m. and 12 o'clock for the Essex Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony. Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Guerin, any questions? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Community Services Special Event Notice, Jingle Bell Run, Walk, Wheel, that Community Services report be received and that council approve closing Talbot Street North South from approximately 516 Talbot Street North to Eiler Avenue on November 10th between 8:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. for the Jingle Bell Run, Walk, and Wheel. Are you going to do it? Yeah, good. Needing a mover and a seconder. Councillor Allard, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor, and that's carried. Community Services Special Event Notice, Essex Center BIA Tiny Tots Parade, looking to have the report be received and that council approve closing Talbot Street North from Laird to Victoria Avenue on October 25th between 9:45 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. for the Essex Center Tiny Tots Parade. Mover and a seconder on that. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, any questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Reports from our youth members. All right, youth member, oh, you're going to be first. Whoa, our new youth member, Foster, welcome.
Through the chair, nothing to report this week.
And youth member Smith.
Through you. Essex on Thursday at 7, we're hosting the homecoming game. It's an annual event this year against Villanova. So please come and show your support for our high school.
Fun. And yeah, just a reminder, if either of you have anything to say on any of these hot topics, just put your hand up and chime in. We always want to hear from you. County Council update, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. On our last county council meeting, council received a report on identified road safety issues. Essex County is conducting a review of its 1,084 intersections and 1,085 road segments to identify safety concerns. A specialized consultant will rank these locations based on a need for safety improvement, with the final list expected by the end of 2024. Safety modifications could begin as early as spring 2025. Part of the new road safety management program, this initiative will help the county prioritize safety measures and monitor their effectiveness in reducing collisions. It is recommended that a similar review be conducted every 5 years to update the data on the traffic conditions. This was brought forward by several requests through county council members to have segments of the road looked at, 16 so far this year. We also purchased some new software for some bridge and culvert asset management, and county council has their list of approved conferences for 2025. And lastly, council calls for a report on civic center access, which I'm not sure if Mayor Bondi would like to speak to her or not. Thank you.
It came to our attention at the last county council meeting that the doors at the county civic center lock at 6:15. So if anybody chooses to watch or to come in person to a county council meeting, you actually can't get in the building. So we directed staff to review. We were told that it was a staffing level, and many council members shared concerns about, potentially, many council members share concerns. You can watch the clip on the county council website. I don't really want to say more. Speaks for itself, but anyways, we are going to get access restored there. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the county council update be received. Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Guerin, all in favor, and that's carried. Correspondence to be received in agenda item 13. We'll receive them all, and then if anybody wishes to speak to any of them, we can. Looking for a mover and a seconder to receive. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Guerin, all in favor. Any members of council wish to pull any out? Correspondence to be received and supported. Essex Accessibility Advisory Committee, that we received a letter of regrets from Corinne Bridger from the Essex Accessibility Committee, and that council directed administration to write a letter of appreciation thanking her for her commitment. Councillor Allard, Councillor Mady, all in favor. That's carried. ELK Energy Board of Directors. Resignation of Brandon Charchet, Director from the ELK Energy Board of Directors. Needing a mover and a seconder that we receive his resignation with regrets, and that council direct administration to write a letter of appreciation and thank him for his commitment to the ELK Energy Board. Councillor Guerin, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions? All in favor, and that is carried. 13.2.3 Community Living, Essex County, Director Malinjuko.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you, that the correspondence from Community Living Essex County asking council to consider proclaiming the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in the town of Essex be received and supported, and if supported, that council proclaim the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in the town of Essex by adopting the following resolution. Whereas Light It Up for NDEAM spotlights the many ways people who have a disability contribute to businesses and their communities, demonstrating how disability, inclusion, and employment can drive success and competitiveness. And whereas Light It Up for NDEAM is the main event in Ontario Disability Employment Network and is a national movement celebrating its 5th anniversary with one-night coordinated special lighting event, which occurs on the 3rd Thursday of every October. And whereas in 2023, almost 700 locations in nearly 150 communities across Canada illuminated in purple and blue. This nationwide collaboration involves ODEN, the Canadian Association for Supported Employment, Mentorability Canada, the federal government, municipal and provincial governments, Jobsability Canada, and many community-based agencies. It is the collective effort that makes Light It Up for NDEAM a powerful event in big cities, small towns, and rural communities from coast to coast. And whereas the town of Essex encourages local businesses and community members to participate in illuminating key landmarks in purple and blue.
Hello, looking for a mover and a seconder. Counselor Meady, Counselor Allard, all in favor, and that's carried. Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the Town of Essex, do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month and invite businesses to participate in the national event to further celebrate workplace accomplishments of people with disabilities across Essex County on October 17th, 2024 for Light It Up for NDEAM Day. Director Malandruclo.
Through you, that the correspondence from Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare asking council to consider proclaiming October 24 as Annual Childcare Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in the town of Essex be received and supported, and if supported, that council proclaim October 24, 2024 as Annual Childcare Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in the town of Essex by adopting the following resolution. Whereas years of research confirms the benefits of high quality early learning and childcare for young children's intellectual, emotional, social, and physical development and later life outcomes. And whereas childcare promotes the well-being of children and responds to the needs of families and the broader community by supporting quality of life so that citizens can fully participate in and contribute to the economic and social life of their community. And whereas trained and knowledgeable registered early childhood educators are the key to quality in early years and childcare programs in licensed childcare, early on programs, child life programs, and full day kindergarten. Whereas registered early childhood educators and childcare workers will be vital to the success of the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system.
Drucolo, looking for a mover and a seconder for that Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare. Counselor Hammond, Counselor Allard, all in favor, and that's carried. Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the Town of Essex, do hereby proclaim that October 24th, 2024 be designated the 24th Annual Child Care Worker and Early Child Care Educator Appreciation Day in recognition of the education, dedication, and commitment of child care workers to children, their families, quality of life, and community. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14 be received, approved, and adopted as circulated. Counselor Hammond, supported by Counselor Verbeek. Any questions on those minutes? All in favor? And that is carried. Financial Q2 capital variance reports as of July 31st. Director Malandruclo, or sorry, Director Drusevich.
Through the chair. So these are simply Q2 results. What we are going to do is something a little bit different. Typically, we would just have council receive them, but I know that we all want to hang out a bit longer, so we're going to walk through a couple of high-level notes from each of the directors who have the larger portfolios. So I'm actually going to pass it directly to Director Jake Morrissuit, who's going to do a very quick synopsis of his projects, and he will pass it on to Infrastructure Services.
You and through the mayor. So just to touch on a couple of our projects in community services, I'll start with fire. So we had a scheduled radio systems upgrade, which has been a carry forward project for a few years now. We've been working closely with Windsor Fire to try and get this accomplished, but they've had some significant turnover in their staffing. So it's still a project that we're on hold. However, we do know that that's probably going to be a couple of years away before we see any true action on that. So we're going to be working with finance on removing that from the future budget. And then when the time comes where we actually have to implement that project, we'll bring it back to council, as there's probably going to be amended pricing. So we'll have a better idea at that point what's going on. Fire Station 3 consultation with the architect. So we are still, as an administration, investigating different locations and properties. So until we have that report and ability to present that to council, we don't want to go ahead with architect drawings as they are site specific. So working on that. Colchester Community Center upgrades. So there's been no action that you would be able to see on this at this point, but the POs for the project have been given out. We're just waiting for the harbor to close and then we can get that work started on that. We did also have to make sure that the community room was not booked during that time frame. So that is scheduled and you should see some action in the next month on that. Rebuilding the archway into Harrow Arena grounds. So we're waiting for some structural engineer work on that. As that was going hand in hand with the parking lot project. Essex Sports Park amenities. So that was a project. There are some delays on that because of the seating. We're still working through that, but we didn't want to touch that budget until we actually know when the sport fields are going to be used. So that is definitely going to be a carry forward, as we will need those products for the following year. Cohen Park Playground. So administration is working on the tender document. So that should be out within the next month or so. So we can get the tender going, and hopefully the tender can be awarded before Christmas. So we can have an early slot for next year for that playground to be built and constructed. Corporate tree inventory assessment. So that project is near completion. We are working with the consultant, actually internal staff that we had hired for this position. So we should have a report back to council hopefully before the end of the year on some updates on that. The Haro Arena parking lot and asphalt and catch basins. We are nearly complete on that project. We're just waiting for some lighting brackets to be manufactured and installed, and those should be within the next couple weeks. And then the last one under my reports that I'm going to be speaking on is the CDOC replacement. So the RFT went out and it was reviewed and awarded. We are just waiting for the harbor to close. And we also need to make sure that we have our authorizations from the federal government. So we submitted those several months ago and we're still waiting for those to come back. So once we have those authorizations back, we'll be able to go ahead and complete the work.
Thank you. Through the chair for infrastructure services, if you are looking at the July 31st date, you'll see not a lot of zeros and low percentages, but obviously since that time, you probably know the majority of our capital projects, including our road treatment tender, annual sidewalk maintenance, hot mix asphalt projects have all completed. We have also now completed for the most part Irwin Avenue. There's a few little minor things with that to wrap up. Most of our carry forwards that we're going to find in road and roadside are going to be our engineering designs that we have currently still going on for Maidstone Talbot, as well as the Maidstone South Talbot intersection improvements. And we will also have our Ridge Road project carrying over because we'd be doing our third lift next year as part of the budget for that. Stormwater, one thing I'm sure you want to know, the LED conversion, which has been on for a while. I'm talking with manager Lucio. The majority of that work has been done. We haven't had the invoices come in yet from ELK, but I think there might be a handful of lights that are left that we'll have to just kind of track down individually, but we're finally have updated the majority of our street lights in the town now to LED. So that's another positive from the infrastructure side. For stormwater management, we have had 3 bridges being constructed this year. We have almost completed the second one and started the work on the third. That work should wrap up middle of November, so we'll get through all of our bridge projects this year. We'll continue to have some carry forward once again on engineering design because we have to do end of maintenance walkthroughs, and the consultant will have some minor fees, but for the most part, these projects will be wrapped up by the end of this year. And the Richmond Drain they finished doing the sheet piling wall out there for both phases 2 and 3. They're just doing some riprap and some cleanup on the road. There's some works that need to be repaired, but that is in good shape as well for our capital projects. On regards to water and wastewater, there's no real major updates to give on there. Most of the pickup trucks have been picked up and the other type of equipment they're being worked through with Aqua, and we'll try and get that most of that work wrapped up this year as well. I don't know who goes to next. That's it. All right.
Because it's been there since at least 2014, probably. Walnut Street Engineering. Pushed to 2025 again.
Through the chair. So Walnut Engineering is currently ongoing. They have started the work on that. So that was coming though out of a 22 number. It may have been a 2014 back in the day. Can't speak to that, but we did award the engineering services last year. They were the same consultant that's doing Irwin Avenue. So they were pushing for Irwin because it was approved within the budget, but they are working on Walnut currently. We're expecting to have an engineering design for that completed by the end of the year. We're around the 90% stage right now. So that's where the engineering stands on that project.
Gutters.
Yes, the road won't be getting any wider because we don't have the ability without moving poles, but the idea would be to upgrade the road with to control stormwater management with curb and gutter.
Okay. We're going to have to sidebar about that because I'm not going through that like Irwin again. We have to talk about driveways ahead of time. Councillor Hammond.
Just wondering, that's the entire Walnut Street, right? North to south?
Chair, that would be from County Road 20 south to the southern limit where there's
That's not the entire road.
it's not Walnut north of County Road 20.
We're not doing both.
Okay, moving, looking for a motion that we receive the capital variance report. Counselor McGuire Blaze, Counselor Hammond, all in favor? And that's carried. No new business. Notices of motion. Director Malandruco.
Through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the September 16, 2024 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Mady, whereas invasive Phragmites is a highly aggressive plant species that has significantly impacted ecosystems in Essex County, including wetlands and coastal areas, by outcompeting native flora, disrupting wildlife habitats, and blocking drainage systems. Whereas the town of Essex recognizes the need for sustainable, effective methods of controlling invasive species to protect biodiversity and ecosystem health. And whereas biological control methods, particularly the introduction of moss species as biocontrol agents, have shown promising results in the management of invasive Phragmites in Ontario under the leadership of Ducks Unlimited Canada, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and the University of Toronto. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Essex requests that the Town of Essex formally reach out to the Essex Conservation Authority to obtain the necessary contacts and information regarding participation in the Phragmites Biological Control Program. Authorize the mayor and/or designated municipal officials to draft and send letters expressing the town's interest in collaborating with IRCA and other relevant agencies such as Ducks Unlimited Canada and the University of Toronto for the inclusion of Essex in future biocontrol release sites. Commit to exploring all available measures to combat the spread of invasive Phragmites, including herbicide use, mechanical removal, and potential integration of the moth biocontrol program to ensure long-term ecological protection in the region. And direct the administration to report back to council with updates on communications with IRCA and other agencies, as well as the next steps required for participation in the biocontrol initiative.
For the motion, we need a seconder. Counselor Verbeek. Counselor Mady.
And through you, your worship. Yeah, it's been a long night. I got a whole bunch of stuff written up on this. I could answer some questions if you want, but I made the motion long enough that you can read it and get the gist of it. The program's been going on since 2019. There's over 50 sites in Ontario. Every site is doing well. The moths are lasting about a year. They're dying off. They're rebreeding them. They're hungry. They've been killing the Phragmites. They've been helping out in the drainage problems. Lord knows we have enough of drainage problems in Ward 3. And I imagine other wards of Phragmites is a horrible thing. So the idea behind this motion is that right now, the only way to get into any of the programs and test sites is going through the university. And then they'll pick out different test sites. So I wanted to make sure that Essex puts our hands up first to get in on this, and hopefully we'll be able to
The contractor that we have with the town that is doing the trees right now, he also does Phragmites surveying for the town of Amherstburg. I talked to him and it might be something that we want to do. Like he goes down all of the roads and the ditches and he grades them. This is like, high, medium, and trouble spots. So that might be something like getting a Phragmites inventory might be something that we want to look at how much that's going to cost. And then once we start putting in measures like the moth, we could see if we're actually making a dent. So yeah, I definitely support the motion. Counselor Verbeek.
I want to thank you, Counselor Mady, for bringing this up again. We've been quiet on it for a while, and I'm really glad that you're bringing it to the forefront again. My first term, it was something we brought to the ministers' meeting. Our first AMO, it's come up many times. I'm grateful that you're bringing this out again. Thanks.
Other comments? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Director Malandruco.
Mayor Bondi. Through you. The following notices of motion are for presentment only and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the October 21, 2024 regular council. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley that council direct administration to review the feasibility and cost of adding a controlled pedestrian crossing over County Road 13, Erie Street South at Wellington Street in Harrow. Moved by Mayor Bondi that the Town of Essex Council direct administration to complete a second phase to the official plan project prior to its adoption, which will include a local comprehensive review to inform the new Town of Essex official plan, that administration and council use the information gained from the LCR to determine the opportunities and constraints associated with Town of Essex land use designations, particularly primary and secondary settlement areas, and the appropriateness of the current settlement areas to accommodate the forthcoming growth, including the consideration of constraints that will inhibit the available settlement areas and whether or not settlement areas need to be reallocated to more appropriate locations to meet growth demand. That administration and council take into consideration results from various infrastructure servicing studies and the cost for current residents in particular, and also future residents, to expand on infrastructure that currently does not exist. That council direct administration to include funding in the 2025 budget for phase 2 of the official plan project, and that administration take into consideration the County of Essex's upcoming specialty crop study on the quality of farmland identified, as that will require the highest level of protection to these valuable agricultural lands.
Thank you. Reports from council members. Start at this end, my left. Councillor McGuire Blaze, and then just keep going, everybody.
Thank you through the chair. I just want to remind everybody some upcoming things in Essex Center. This weekend is the open streets. It's the last open streets of the year. So everyone make sure you get out. It'll be a beautiful day for that. Along with the open streets on Saturday, the GOAT, the Taekwondo place is having an open house for their 1-year anniversary, I think. So go in and check them out, see what they're all about. And then the Tiny Tots Parade is happening in October. It's the last Friday of the month. Last Friday of the month. So make sure you check those out if you have a little one at home. Thanks.
Just wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving weekend.
Thank you. And first I want to say hello, welcome. It's great to have you. And echo the happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the room and out there. And that's it. Thanks.
Well, Deputy Mayor's not here, but I want to thank him and Cool Treats for providing council and administration with a fine dinner tonight. It was very generous on behalf of Ice Cool Treats and the Shepley family. Thank you very much.
Macbeth for the soup as well. We got spoiled tonight. So bylaws requiring a third and final reading, bylaw 2369 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the September 16th, 2024 regular council meeting be read a third and finally passed on October 7th. Mover in a second. Councillor Mady, Councillor Hammond, all in favor, and that's carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading, bylaw 2388 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 7th regular council meeting to be read a first and second time, provisionally passed today. Mover and a seconder, Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Mady, all in favor, and a motion to adjourn. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Hammond, all in favor, and that is carried. Thank you for joining us tonight.